Welcome to our latest version of Action Coach's Business Spotlight. My name's Gary Hales. I'm a business coach down in Dorset. And I'd like to welcome my special guest today, Mark Morris from the Staff Canteen. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much for the invite, Gary. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Likewise, I'm looking to learn lots about chefs. And as I was saying earlier before we started, my daughter has a dream to be a chef. So I'll get her to watch this recording and see if you can do a good sales job on her becoming a good chef then, Mark.
I'll do my best.
Excellent. So Mark, let's just get started. You're from the Staff Canteen. So do you just want to give us a bit of background on yourself and your business?
Yeah, so I was a chef. I was very fortunate. I had a great career. I worked at the Savoy, the Dorchester, Gleneagles. I worked in France, Barbados, Hong Kong. Wow. So I think it's a profession that gives you the opportunity to travel. Mm-hmm. And I then got into recruitment. I started a recruitment company that was dedicated to chefs, and from that, the sort of Staff Canteen was generated almost by accident. 15 years ago, and this is pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter, pre-YouTube, pre all of the social networks that are pretty much ubiquitous today. And the landscape was very different digitally, and people sort of communicated on online forums. So that's where the Staff Canteen began, and 15 years later, it is the monster that it's become today.
So just expand for the benefit of our viewers. What actually is the Staff Canteen?
So it's probably worth, we called it the Staff Canteen because, as I say, 15 years ago, when it was an online forum, it was a meeting place. So that was kind of like the origins of it. It was a meeting place for chefs. There were lots of petrolhead forums around, and caravanning forums and all sorts of things. So we created one for chefs. And what the Staff Canteen is, I guess it's the simplest way of describing it is, it's a one-stop shop for chefs. It has recipes, features, news, interviews, networking. It allows you to showcase what you do. We do live events. We do networking lunches. We do an awards. So it's if you're a chef, it should have everything that a chef needs.
Okay. And is it UK focused or international, Mark?
So we're predominantly based in the UK, but we do feature a lot of overseas chefs, European chefs, Australian chefs. I guess that's the beauty of being online, isn't it? The world is a very, very small place.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to you personally, Mark, then what was your reason for becoming a chef? Was it a passion that you had from a young age, or?
I was pretty rubbish at woodwork. I don't know. It's just something I always wanted to do. I genuinely don't know why. It was something I always wanted to do. I went to Bournemouth College, which was absolutely amazing. They sent me to France for 6 months, and I always sort of had a pretty structured career in my mind. I knew I wanted to work in Hong Kong. I knew I wanted to work overseas, and I did all of those things. So yeah, it was, I don't know. The classic is my grandmother was a great cook and all of that type of thing, but it's just something that I always wanted to do.
All right.
And I did really enjoy it.
Okay, excellent. So just with the Staff Canteen then, Mark, did you set that up yourself, or was it you and business partners, or?
No, I set it up with my wife. As it was originally a forum on our recruitment site. And then we got a phone call from the Manoir Quatre Saisons, who said to us that they wanted to put a banner on the website. And we said, why do you want to do that? And they said, all of our chefs are reading it, and we think it'd be a good recruitment tool. And it was a little bit like one of those light bulb moments where we went, okay, this is a business. So we migrated it off the recruitment site, set up the staffcanteen.com, registered to staffcanteen.com, and ran it independently from the recruitment business.
Okay, interesting. And did you say that was 14 years ago?
Yeah, 15 years ago, to celebrate our 15th birthday. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Congratulations. So I guess sort of, if we went back to the beginning and you were starting again now from square one, knowing what you know now with the proverbial hindsight on, what would you do differently?
I think when we started the staff canteen, we had no idea where it was going to go. We had no idea what it was going to be. And I think to a degree, we were making it up as we went along. And that's okay. Things change in business and you have to be fluid and you have to adapt. But I don't think we really had a strategy, and I don't think we really had a clear vision of what it was going to be. So I think probably we would be, or yeah, we would need to be a lot more structured, understand exactly what it is we were going to provide, and then stick to that. I think perhaps over the course of 15 years, we've a little bit tacked in the wind sometimes.
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, as I said, we were pre all the social networks, and then the social networks came along.
Yeah.
And that, you know, dramatically changed the landscape.
Yeah.
So I think really having a strategy, understanding exactly what you were going to do. And if I'm honest, I would have probably gone out and raised investment for the company, because, you know, when you're in tech, you can just swallow thousands of pounds very easily.
Okay, yeah.
It's and now trying to compete with the Metas of the world it's impossible.
Okay.
It's absolutely impossible. So those would be the two things I'd really do, is to make sure there's a, you know, a strategy, a business plan, and then on that probably seek investment.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say 90% of the new clients I take on board don't have a vision, a mission statement, don't have a strategy and a business plan. They have vague ideas up in the sky, and but don't have it documented down. And as you say, drifting in the wind is such a common thing. So
yeah, had all that for the recruitment company, and as I say, because the staff canteen was kind of like you know, something that just organically happened. You know, we didn't have all of those things in place.
An interesting point you mentioned earlier. I mean, would you consider yourself a tech company now then, or what would you class yourself?
Yeah, I think we are a tech company now, and we're moving more and more into data, and, you know, what our data tells us. Now, chefs are predominantly hard to reach. They're time poor. You know, one thing the industry is incredibly short of at the moment is time. Incredibly short. So it's for us understanding the user habits of our audience. You know, when they visit us, where do they work? What sector do they work in? Do they have purchasing authority? What's the frequency of certain purchases? All of that carries a value to people that want to reach chefs. So yeah, I think we wear a lot of hats. We're a media company, but yeah, we're a tech company as well.
Okay, interesting. So it's quite a pivot from where you started then in recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, was that driven a lot by COVID, or was it happening pre-COVID?
No, I think it was happening pre-COVID. Yeah, COVID changed the landscape dramatically, and, you know, hospitality is still in a really, really tough place. It's you know, it's a perfect storm for hospitality. You had COVID, you had Brexit. You know, you've now got an increase in energy costs. So hospitality is really, really getting squeezed. And therefore spend is, you know, is reduced. People are hanging on to spend. There's still caution in the market. So like all, as I said earlier, you know, you have to adapt along the way. So I think that, you know, for us, it's about us moving much more into, you know, understanding what our data tells us.
Okay, interesting. And how many people have you got in your team, Mark?
There's 8 of us.
Okay, all right. And has it always been 8, or has it just grown over the years?
No, sadly, we lost a couple during COVID, purely and simply because, you know, you know, the economy was what it was. And, you know, as I said before, hospitality was one of those sectors where it was like, are we going to be open? Aren't we going to be open? Are we going to be open? Aren't we going to be open? Our web developers, for example, never been busier. A friend of mine was in, does a lot of things in people's homes, and because people weren't going on holiday, people were spending a fortune on their homes. It was a real mixed bag. Everyone in hospitality was like, how am I going to pay the mortgage? And some people were like, this lockdown thing is great. It's really good. You know, yeah, I mean, it was a challenge. Yeah, we've adapted.
Yeah. Okay. So when you look at it from a team point of view, then Mark, I mean, since you began in business, what would you say have been some of your biggest learnings?
I think that's, you know, the team is incredibly important. I think you have to empower the team. You have to get the right people as well. It's massively important to get the right people. And I think that a lot of businesses, because, you know, recruiting people is, well, it's time consuming, it's hard work. Finding good people is not easy. There can be a tendency to say, oh, we need someone, we'll take someone on. And you know, it's really important to get the right people in your business. And I'd also say as well, and you know, is don't be frightened to let people go if they're not performing.
Okay. And how do you make sure you're recruiting the right people then? Do you have a particular process you follow, or is it gut feel? What do you work on?
We've been incredibly lucky. I mean, the team's been really solid. And, you know, people have been with us for 5 or 6 years. Editor's been with us 9 years. Head of sales has been with us 8 years. And I think, you know, that speaks testament in terms of, you know, the people we employ, hopefully the way we treat them. But I think that, you know, in terms of a recruitment process, we would always get the team leaders to begin the recruitment process. If, you know, so let's say, for example, we're recruiting someone for the editorial department. And Cara, the editor, would start the recruitment process. We'd potentially set them a task to do, you know, write an article, go source a chef, write an article on them. Then we'd evaluate that article, ask them why they did it, you know, what the challenges they had. And myself and Lucy would interview them. Then we'd get the rest of the team to meet them, as I think that's really important as well. It's got to be, you know, you can often have people with the right skill set. But equally, they've got to fit into the team, and making sure that team dynamic, you know, can still work and still perform, is very, very important.
Yeah. As you say, it's all about people, isn't it? Everybody's got to get on. I mean, we use disc profiling. You're probably aware of that from your recruitment days, you know, to help recruit the right people and get a balance within the team. So you don't have just replicants repeating each other, and no challenge to grow the business. So Mark, when you look back over the last sort of 14, 15 years, what would you say are the common misconceptions about owning and running a business?
It's easy.
It's easy, yeah. Definitely not. It's definitely not easy.
I mean, you know, it's like everything. It has clearly its advantages, and it has its disadvantages. If you want to, you know, take the morning off, then you can. But equally, you know, you're often going to be working at 10 o'clock at night. You know, the buck stops with you. The pressure of, you know, like all businesses, if sales aren't good, then you start, you know, thinking about cash flow. You start thinking about the pressure that puts on the business. And I think that, you know, during all of that, you've got to remain positive and upbeat and try and motivate people and lead people. But you know, you're under a huge amount of pressure, and that's not always easy. That can be really tough. Really tough, and I'm not sure always people in the team understand that. So I think that, you know, running a business can be great fun. It can be hugely stressful as well.
I mean, mental health issues are obviously a big thing at the moment, and I mean, how do you deal with the pressure?
I exercise a lot.
Right.
You know, I find that a massive plus. So I'm in the gym at 6:20 in the morning.
Okay.
I'm in the gym till 10 to 8. Then I go and walk the dogs. And I'm at my desk for 9:30. But I've done an hour and a half in the gym and an hour dog walk by 9:30 in the morning. And I just find that gym process kind of releases those endorphins. And I find that doing it first thing in the morning is the best time of day to do it, because there's always if you don't do it, there's always an excuse then not to do it. I'll just do one more email, or I just do, you know. So I find that really, really helpful. You know, there's a lot of studies around saying, you know, linking exercise to mental health.
Absolutely.
And I try and eat really well. I try and eat really well. You know, I'm in the food industry.
Yeah.
And you know, we get the opportunity to eat a lot of very good meals.
I can imagine.
Which is fantastic. So I intermittent fast. I do lots of things to you know, to try and make sure that I maintain my weight and keep on top of my mental health.
Excellent. Good. And obviously your business has grown quite well over the last sort of 15 years. What would you attribute that growth to?
I think that what we've always done is put the community at the heart of everything we do. So, you know, I really don't like the by chefs for chefs tagline. It's just cheesy. But I can't actually think of a better way of describing it. I think that, you know, what we did, you know, when back in the early days, I mean, we employed an editor before we employed a salesperson. And I always felt that if you give people the content and, you know, you give them the information that they need, the commercials will work. If you don't have people coming to your website, if you don't have a community, if you don't have all of those people coming, you know, it doesn't matter how many salespeople you've got nothing to sell against. So I think, you know, putting the chefs first, building a platform that was dedicated to chefs and being led by them. You know, we always listen to them, good, bad, or indifferent. You know, we listen to them. 9 times out of 10, we get it right. When we don't, and we don't always, we listen. You know, we listen, and if people say, you know, yeah, that's not reflective of what's happening in the industry, then we'll listen to what, you know, to what people say. I think that, you know, over the last 10 years, we've become much more diverse, much more inclusive, much more aware of growing trends in the industry, and I think that's really healthy.
Okay. Excellent. I just want to take us back a little bit in terms of employees. I mean, what specific qualities do you look for within your employees, and how do you create that sort of positive and productive work environment?
I think that, you know, clearly having the right skill set is a starting point. But I think you also have to empower your team. You know, you have to lead by example. You have to, you know, set very, very high standards for the team. And I think that, again, you know, communication is a massive thing. And I think that, you know, for us since COVID, because we're all remote, then communication has suffered. You know, we're on a Zoom call now, and Zoom's brilliant. It works really, really well. It works really, really well. But it takes away that spontaneity, that creativity, that kind of, like, you know, across the desk when you say, what do you think about this? And someone goes, it's the worst idea you've ever had. You go, okay, yeah, no, fair enough. But what about if we did it this way? What about if we did it, you know, and they go, yeah, that might work better like that. So I think communication is massively important. And, you know, empowering the team and letting them do their jobs. And I think that, you know, just looking after them, you know, silly little things like, you know, we send them all an Easter egg at Easter, you know, we send them all something on their birthday, we send them all something at Christmas, just those little things. It's not always about what you pay people. It's about making sure that someone feels recognized, someone feels that they've done a good job, somebody feels that, you know, something that they've done plays a part in the business. And, you know, we've got a young lady at the moment. She's an apprentice with us. And we had our social media manager leave, Emily. She's been with us 5 years, so we're recruiting at the moment. You know, and Kira's really stepped up to the plate. And, you know, it's just making sure that, you know, we tell her what an amazing job she's doing. And, you know, she now feels that, you know, she's a very, very important part of the business. And, you know, she's, over the last 2 months, has grown incredibly. But equally, it's really important not to throw them in at the deep end. There's a fine line between, we all perform slightly better when we're slightly under pressure.
Correct. Yeah.
And there's a fine line between being, having to hit a deadline and being too much under pressure.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And those things you talked about, that it's not just about money, we refer to them as critical non-essentials. They
Absolutely
matter so much, and as you say, it gives people such a big boost.
Yeah. A card on their birthday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So there's lots of things like that we do.
Yeah. And there tend to be, Mark, sort of three core things we focus on with clients, which we've touched on: time, getting that time balance right, getting the team right. The other one is financial. So I guess sort of, what advice would you give to business owners regarding financial management? What's important that they have to know?
As I said in the early days, we didn't have a business plan, or we didn't have a strategy. And my wife is the person that I would spend absolutely everything and have no money in the bank. And my wife is a very good leveler. And I think that if you ever watch things like Dragon's Den or anything like that, there will always be an entrepreneur figure, but behind that entrepreneur figure will be a number cruncher.
Yeah, absolutely.
And understanding the numbers in your bit. I mean, I read a book by Richard Branson, who said that all business owners should sign the checks. Obviously, this is going back a few years. There aren't many businesses now that sign checks.
Yeah.
Because when he used to sign a check, he'd be like, what's that for? But the point being is, you have to be close to the numbers. You have to understand the numbers. The numbers are absolutely fundamentally important. There is no point flag waving. There is no point, profit is not a dirty word.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important to make a profit. And that's been a challenge in COVID. Nobody wants to be ripped off. Nobody wants to be overcharged. It's a little bit like if you go out for dinner and you have a fantastic meal and you get the bill, you go, okay. Yeah. If you go out and have a really poor dinner and you get the bill, the first thing you do is go, whoa, that was 200 quid. Whoa, that's and it's the same, it's the same in business. Is people want to feel they've got value for money. But to answer your question is, you have to be close to the numbers, a P&L, cash flow, monthly management meetings, and we share with the senior management team. We share all of the figures, warts and all.
All right, excellent. Yeah, and there's never a truer saying than cash is king, is there, in business?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Yeah. Last couple of questions, Mark. You touched on books there. Do you have a favorite business related book?
God, I've read so many. Favorite business related book. I did really like the Duncan Bannatyne books, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
I really liked him on Dragon's Den because he came from, it was a bit of a rag to riches sort of story.
Right. Yeah.
A guy from Greenock, the west coast of Scotland, just outside of Glasgow. And, he made his money in care. Well, he made his money in ice cream. And he worked out, it's just simple things like he worked out that he could put 5 ice cream cones in his hand, and then the soft scoop machines. So in terms of like numbers dispensed per hour, he could dispense more ice creams. And then when he got into care homes, in order for the care home to get a certain amount of government funding, it had to have people in the care home. So he would say to his nan, come in for a cup of tea, bring all your friends. And then the local council would come round, and it would be full. But so the thing is, sometimes in business, you have to sail a bit close to the wind.
Yeah. Take a gamble. Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, so, you look at people like, Elon Musk, and you look at all these people and you think, what's the difference between them and I? And sometimes it's simply luck.
Yeah. Could well be.
Sometimes it's simply luck. And what we never hear about is, you know, because people don't write books on businesses that don't succeed.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes, you know, yeah, to answer your question, I think actually the Elon Musk book is very good.
Okay.
And the Duncan Bannatyne book, just because it's got some really simple, practical things in it that you think, yeah, that's, you know, it's not, you don't need great academia to understand things like that. It's just actually being a little bit streetwise.
Yeah. I read the Duncan Bannatyne book quite a few years ago. He was a lifeguard on Jersey Beach or something, wasn't he, when he sort of got kicked into gear? So come from
nothing till he was about 32, bummed around on a beach.
That's right. Yeah.
Then started selling ice cream, and you know, then as I say, got into care homes.
Yeah.
And it was just, you know, as I say, I just liked his approach because he doesn't come from a money background. There are lots and lots of entrepreneurs and lots of business people that have had, you know, Trump, for example, you know, his dad gave him millions. Well, you know, if you've got that, it's a lot easier than starting from scratch. So I think anyone that's kind of built it literally from the ground up, always interests me more. That, you know, Richard Branson as well, you know. So probably Duncan Bannatyne's books.
Excellent. So one last question for you, Mark. What question should I ask you that I haven't?
Oh God. Would I do the staff canteen again?
And the answer is?
Yeah, I would, but I'd do it very differently.
Okay. Interestingly. How would you do it differently?
As I say, well, you know, just having a strategy, just being much more tech focused earlier on, and just making sure, as I said, you know, I think perhaps over the period of time we lost sight of the community. Certainly, when the other social networks sprang up, it was very, very difficult to keep hold of that community. So we should have focused much more on that community. But you know what? Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And so that, I would do it, but I would do it differently.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Thanks very much for that, Mark. It was very interesting to hear your background and where you've come from and what you've done, and importantly, your insights into business. That's really what our listeners are interested in. As you quite rightly say, you know, people come from all sorts of backgrounds to actually make their businesses successful. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you very much for asking me to do it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you. Okay.